Joined now by the former Deputy Chair of the HS2 Review Commission, Lord Berkeley. Hello to you, Lord Berkeley. Thank you for joining us on the programme this morning. We appreciate you taking the time. Why do you think that your warnings appear to have been ignored by the Prime Minister? You think it's a very bad idea?
I think the HS2 is a very expensive project and it doesn't actually deliver what the Prime Minister and many other people in the North and the Midlands want, which is a much better commuter services, particularly east-west. And actually, the Mayor of Manchester has said this week that he'd rather have a better service across the Pennines than HS2. I think that says it all. So if the Prime Minister can afford both, that's fine, but it'll come expensive.
It looks as though the figures are going up all of the time.
Well, the figure I came up with in my report in January was 106 billion, and I think the government is moving towards that figure. But of course, the other problem is that Euston Station has not really been designed or priced yet. It's a long way behind, and so there's a lot of contingency built into any price.
And yet we do need a better rail system in this country than we've got at the moment, and it comes at a cost.
It comes at a cost. We need a better rail system, but it is possible actually to upgrade the existing lines, and I put in a report to ministers last week on that, which will be much cheaper, but the key is it can deliver an improvement much better than the HS2, which is probably going to be 2040 before it's finished.
So what are you saying? HS2 is a vanity project?
I think it's a vanity project for people who want to get to London quicker and maybe even commute between Birmingham and London, which would not be good for Birmingham, I don't think. It is a vanity project. In a small country like us, we don't need to go nearly 400 kilometres an hour, which is faster than any other high-speed line in Europe. We just need reliability and frequency in a seat. And commuters need that every day. People going to London probably don't need it every day unless they're commuting from Milton Keynes.
So the Prime Minister, we believe, is going to say after Cabinet today that London to Birmingham is going to happen, then Birmingham to Crewe, then the rest would be announced at some stage in the future. You think that's anything but sensible?
Well, the Prime Minister has actually said, as part of our work with the Oakervee Review, that we should examine starting in the north and going and finishing in the south, which is fine, except that work has already started in the preparations in the south. But the Prime Minister will have to put a paper or two to Parliament to present the latest cost estimate, a cost-benefit analysis, and now the Oakervee Report, before any permanent works can start on phase one. And maybe he'll do that today. None of us have seen anything about it, but it would be good if he does. But if he doesn't, he'll have to do it again. He'll have to do it before permanent works start.
But he's got a stonking majority, so that would, I mean, that's just dotting the I's and crossing the T's, isn't it?
Well, I think there'll be quite a few members of Parliament who might have views on it. It isn't a question of voting for it. It's already got planning approval, but I think some members of Parliament will want to make sure that the costs are reasonable. And another way of reducing the cost is to reduce the speed of the trains and probably leave out the section between Old Oak Common in West London and Euston, which costs 8 billion and has very little benefit as far as I can see.
Why did you feel it's necessary to step down from your position?
Because when we were moving towards the end of the review period in October, we were shown a copy of the draft report, and it was very confidential, and we had to read it in the office and we couldn't take a copy away. I read it and said to the chairman, well, I don't think I can sign this because it's a recommendation to go ahead. And the recommendation was based on, I thought, what was flawed analysis, including the ability and the need to run 18 trains an hour in both directions on the line. Now, no high-speed line in the world outside China, I'm not sure about China, but in Japan or Europe, runs more than 13 or 14. 18 makes the cost-benefit look a lot better if you can fill the trains. And that was one of the reasons I said, look, you can't make a recommendation on something that you cannot operate. And there were a lot of other comments on it I had as well about the ability of the private sector to finance stations and attract enormous income and developments into the regions. And I just said, this is not the basis on which we received evidence, and so I withdrew at that stage.
Do you think it's a project that will be successful in the long term? I mean, I remember that when the Channel Tunnel was being built, people thought that it was a vanity project, and look how absolutely essential it is to everyday life for so many people now.
Well, vanity is in the eyes of the beholder or the critic or whatever you like. The Channel Tunnel, the costs went, I worked on that, as you know, and the costs went up, but nothing like the costs escalation we've seen on HS2, which is more than doubled before a spade has been put in the ground.
Why do you think that is?
Sorry?
Why do you think that is?
I don't think it was thought through properly, and I think the specification is very much too high, because it isn't just that the speed causes a lot of other extra costs, bigger embankments, a different type of track, bigger cuttings and things like that, and it does add probably 10 or 20% to the cost, and so that's why we've got there already. And I don't think they've done it, the design of Euston, which for HS2 is after all a very important part of the project. It's not finished, and it's subject to a lot of risky work still to be looked at.
Well, Berkeley, thank you very much indeed for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.